Marvel Studios is fantastic at a number of things. From storytelling to character development and more, they're easily one of the best film studios out there right now. But some of what makes them great does cause us no end of frustration. By the time Spider-Man Far From Home wrapped up Phase 3, barely any information about Phase 4 was available. But at the 2019 San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel Studios announced what was to come in Phase 4 of the MCU and beyond. Many fan-favorite characters will be returning to the big screen, as well as some new heroes fans can look forward to meeting. It's time to reveal all the information that's out there about Phase 4 and how it fits into the timeline in the current MCU. Natasha Romanoff has had a tough time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever since she first appeared in the movie Iron Man 2. No, it's not all of the enemies she's had to fight or the personal trauma she's overcome over the years. It's her character. At first, even actress Scarlett Johansson admitted Natasha was little more than eye candy who just so happened to be trained as a spy. We've seen her make questionable romantic calls, struggle to find her identity, and ultimately sacrifice her life to save the day in Avengers Endgame. Even Johansson admitted she didn't find Natasha's demise easy to deal with. She admits to feeling overwhelmingly sad about her character's fate in the MCU. Johansson claims her co-stars tried to comfort her by pointing out that she's getting her own standalone movie, but that's not quite the same. Thankfully, that's not the end of Natasha's story. The Black Widow movie Marvel Studios has been talking about for years is finally going to be hitting theaters in Phase 4. In fact, since all the way back in 2004, there was talk about Lionsgate creating a Black Widow movie. Because it never ended up happening, the character rights reverted to Marvel Studios, who were able to include the character in the MCU. Not only is this movie happening, but it's going to kick off Phase 4 on May 1st, 2020. Considering the last appearance she made in Endgame, it wasn't surprising to find out that it takes place prior to that movie. However, where Natasha's standalone movie landed on the MCU timeline still managed to be surprising. Many fans assumed the Black Widow movie would take place prior to Iron Man 2 and showcase Natasha's origin story and how she became a spy. But while it does take place before her fateful fall from Vormir, it takes place quite some time after her MCU debut. According to Scarlett Johansson, where we find Natasha in her life at this point is very specific. And where is that specific spot? Apparently, it takes place after the events of Captain America: Civil War, which was the first film in Marvel's Phase 3. After Natasha sided with Steve Rogers against the Sokovia Accords, they essentially became fugitives who didn't resurface until 2018's Avengers: Infinity War. What they had been up to during that gap in time remained a mystery. But Johansson has shed some light over what Natasha was experiencing and what Black Widow will show. Johansson describes Natasha as being in a dark place and grappling with her own self. She may be forced to take a long, hard look at herself, but Natasha isn't her own greatest enemy here. In fact, a highly anticipated comic book villain will be making his big screen debut in the movie, the Taskmaster. Also known as Tony Masters, this villain has the ability to recreate the movements of those who oppose him. But while Natasha will have enemies to face, she'll also have allies who have never made an MCU appearance. Natasha is far from the only person familiar with the infamous Red Room. Rachel Weisz will be portraying Melina, and Florence Pugh will play Yelena Belova. Oti Fagbenle will be playing the role of Mason, Natasha's ally from her days with S.H.I.E.L.D. and someone who's romantically interested in her. Fans are looking forward to learning more about Natasha and see her in action once again, but there's one worrisome aspect of Black Widow's place in the MCU timeline. What happened between Natasha and Clint Barton in Budapest? Marvel Studios has confirmed that the film will let us know just what happened to them in Budapest, an event that has only been mentioned in the vaguest of terms up until now. This could finally provide us with a piece of MCU history that has been missing since the first time it was mentioned in the Avengers. We've been waiting years to see a movie about founding member of the Avengers, Natasha Romanoff, but there are plenty of new heroes fans are eager to see in the MCU as well. Marvel Studios has been teasing us about an Eternals movie for quite some time, so fans were ecstatic when it was announced to be taking place in Phase 4. The Eternals is scheduled to hit theaters on November 6, 2020, and will introduce a slew of superpowered characters into the MCU. The Eternals are characters created by Marvel Comics legend Jack Kirby, who also had a hand in coming up with many of our favorites, including Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, and the Black Panther. They're the result of celestial involvement in the human evolutionary process, so although they look like humans, they have impressive powers, including immortality. But while the Celestials created the mostly benevolent Eternals, they also created their greatest enemy. The premise of the movie is that the Eternals must protect humanity from their insidious counterparts, the Deviants. While it's uncertain exactly when this movie will take place, the fact that most of the characters are immortal provides Marvel Studios with limitless options. According to Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige, the Eternals will help fill in some missing gaps in MCU history. Only little information about the Celestials is known thanks to the Collector from Guardians of the Galaxy, and nowhere is actually the severed head of one of those beings. Ego the Living Planet was introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and he helped show what kind of terrible power the Celestials possess. Feige claims Ego was involved with others of his kind at one point, but says viewers will learn much more about their agenda and what they've been up to. It certainly seems as though the Eternals movie will be filling in some gaps in the MCU's lore. Feige has stated that the Eternals will cover a long period of time, although it's unknown how it'll coincide with the current day in the MCU. Let's take a look at the characters who predate even the mighty Thor. Angelina Jolie will be playing the role of Thena, and claims she's thrilled to become a part of the cinematic institution that is the MCU. She'll be joined by Richard Madden as Icarus and Salma Hayek as Ajak, the leader of the Eternals. As for the rest of the cast, Kumail Nanjiani will be playing Kingo, Brian Tyree Henry will portray Phastos, Leah McHugh is Sprite, and Don Lee will be Gilgamesh. But it's Lauren Ridloff's character Makkari who represents an important MCU first. Lauren Ridloff is known for her role as Connie on AMC's The Walking Dead, and now she's going to play the first deaf character in the MCU. In the comic books, there's a period of time in which Hawkeye goes deaf and learns ASL in order to communicate. Many fans hoped this would be something incorporated into the MCU, but it looks as though the honor of this momentous first is going to Makkari instead. Unlike many other high-profile Marvel characters, the Eternals are relatively obscure. They never achieved the popularity of other heroes like Spider-Man or Captain America, but Marvel has done wonders with little-known characters before. For example, look at how popular the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are, and how much creative freedom the cast and crew are able to have as a result. This, combined with the all-star cast, makes the Eternals a movie many people are very much interested in. The next movie in Marvel's Phase 4 lineup is already causing controversy, even though it's not scheduled to debut until February 12, 2021. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will introduce Asian superhero Shang-Chi to the MCU, and tie his story into that of established terrorist group the Ten Rings. But not everyone is excited about this, and in fact, some fans in China are downright furious. There's no denying that as great as Marvel comic books are, they've come a long way since the early days. For quite a while, their depictions of Asian characters were problematic, and more often than not, they were reduced to harmful stereotypes. Even Wong from Doctor Strange needed a major revamping from his subservient comic book origins. Shang-Chi is an especially troublesome character, since his father is the legendary Fu Manchu, or basically the epitome of an Asian stereotype. For this reason, many fans believe Marvel Studios is making a mistake by bringing Shang-Chi and his story to the big screen. But there are plenty of people excited to see martial arts master Shang-Chi on the big screen, particularly Chinese-Canadian actor Simu Liu, who was tweeting at Marvel Studios about this movie for ages before it was announced. He had previously complained about a lack of diversity in the MCU, and now he's part of Phase 4's promise of greater diversity. Not only will Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings introduce an Asian superhero to the MCU, but it could also redeem a popular comic book character many fans feel Marvel Studios has treated poorly in the past. The Mandarin has long been a nemesis of Iron Man, and originally he was going to be the primary antagonist of the very first Iron Man movie all the way back in 2008. In the comic books, the Mandarin possesses 10 rings that are imbued with alien technology, but in the MCU, the Ten Rings is a terrorist organization who kidnapped Tony Stark and Iron Man, and continued to cause him nothing but trouble. Ben Kingsley played actor Trevor Slattery in Iron Man 3, who was masquerading as the Mandarin. Many fans were livid about not getting to see the real villain in the MCU, but Marvel Studios slightly redeemed themselves with the one-shot All Hail the King. This confirmed that there's an actual Mandarin somewhere in the MCU, and he will be in the Shang-Chi movie. Up until now, the last time the Ten Rings were mentioned in the MCU was in the movie Ant-Man, when the organization was revealed to be interested in buying the Yellow Jacket suit. Could the Mandarin be acquiring technology to create an actual set of 10 rings similar to the ones he uses in the comic books? It's an interesting question. And there's another massive piece of information fans want to know about the Shang-Chi movie. Tony Leung Chiu-wai will be playing the part of the true Mandarin in this movie, but many fans question his relation to Shang-Chi. Will they simply be enemies, or will Marvel Studios rewrite history and make the Mandarin Shang-Chi's father instead of the problematic Fu Manchu? As far as when exactly on the MCU timeline Shang-Chi will take place, this hasn't been announced yet. Although very little is known about the movie, it's shaping up to be a solid entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will introduce new characters into the MCU, but there are some familiar faces fans are looking forward to seeing. The movie Doctor Strange was a hit when it was released in 2016, and many fans wondered why they didn't see a sequel sooner. But a sequel has been announced for Phase 4, as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will be hitting theaters on May 7th, 2021. Not only will Dr. Stephen Strange return, but this film could answer an important question many fans have following the end of Phase 3. Avengers Endgame introduced the idea of a multiverse, something comic book fans are already quite familiar with. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, claimed to be from another version of Earth, causing Peter Parker to delightfully exclaim that the MCU is a multiverse. Of course, it turned out Quentin was lying, but what does that mean for the multiverse? Is it real or not? Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson was able to shed some light on that confusing question. Derrickson is returning to direct Multiverse of Madness, and he urges viewers not to rely on Quentin Beck's version of the truth. He stated just because Quentin Beck makes up lies about the multiverse doesn't mean it isn't real. This statement, combined with the title of the movie, sure makes it seem like this film will unequivocally prove the fact that the MCU is in fact a multiverse. Considering how revolutionary Derrickson describes the movie, there's no guarantee that it'll be taking place on the main timeline. Although Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will feature familiar characters, Derrickson has claimed it'll be the first scary MCU film. Benedict Cumberbatch, who will be reprising his role as the eponymous character, claims both Strange and the audience will be encountering unexpected things. Which is a bold statement, considering all the things Doctor Strange has seen so far in his MCU career. According to Derrickson, he was positively brimming with ideas when making the first Doctor Strange movie, but was forced to put them aside for the sake of providing Strange with a comprehensive origin story. Now that the origin story's out of the way, Derrickson is looking towards bringing some truly terrifying beings from the comic books to the big screen. He originally wanted comic book villain Nightmare to be the antagonist of the first movie, and many fans wonder if he'll be featured in the sequel. It's possible the multiverse mentioned in the title could be a reference to the Nightmare realm from the comic books. The previous film left off with Carl Mordo turning his back on Strange and his former allies, vowing to take down practitioners of the mystic arts. While it isn't confirmed whether or not he's going to be returning for this film, another familiar face will be appearing in this movie, and she's going to have a major part to play. Actress Elizabeth Olsen will be reprising her role as Scarlet Witch in the Doctor Strange sequel, and although Wanda Maximoff might seem like an unlikely partner for Strange, there's some method to this madness. According to Kevin Feige, Scarlet Witch has an absolutely massive amount of raw power, but has had precious little training. In contrast, Doctor Strange is all about training and learning to control powerful cosmic forces. When Scarlet Witch was first introduced in Avengers Age of Ultron, magic wasn't as prominent in the MCU. Wanda's powers were attributed to the Mind Stone, but they do seem similar to the ones used by Doctor Strange. Perhaps this movie will provide an explanation for the connection as well as an opportunity for these two powerhouses to learn from one another. Since Derrickson has expressed relief in getting Strange's origin story out of the way, it's safe to say this movie isn't a prequel to the first. Following the events of Captain America Civil War, Wanda and Vision went off on their own before the latter perished in Avengers Infinity War. Based on this information, it seems likely Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will take place following Avengers Endgame. Although if the multiverse is involved, time could have surprisingly little relevance here. While some films focus on filling gaps in the history of the MCU, others move time forward, like the fourth movie in the Thor franchise. Thor: Love and Thunder will be released on November 5th, 2021, and it's safe to say big changes are in store for the MCU. In Avengers Endgame, Thor went through a bit of a rough patch following the decimation. Although he was able to pull himself out of it, he had no interest in sticking around to oversee New Asgard. Instead, he passed the responsibility over to Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson, and took off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Love and Thunder will show Valkyrie coming into her own as the ruler of New Asgard. And she has some interesting plans for the future of the kingdom. According to Thompson, now that Valkyrie is king, she needs to find her queen, so that will be her first order of business. She added that Valkyrie has some ideas on the subject, and Kevin Feige confirmed Valkyrie will be the first openly LGBTQ superhero in the MCU. This comes shortly after director Joe Russo portrayed the first openly gay character in the MCU in Avengers Endgame. Valkyrie may be opening up now, but her sexuality is something that Marvel Studios has been dancing around for quite some time. Valkyrie was first introduced in the movie Thor Ragnarok, and there was a scene cut from the final film that involved a woman sneaking out of Valkyrie's bedroom. There was also going to be a moment in Endgame where Valkyrie rejected Thor's kiss after he turned over New Asgard to her. Although Feige was reluctant to comment on how Valkyrie's orientation will impact the story of Love and Thunder, he added that it'll contain a level of representation he hopes will carry across all Marvel movies. Speaking of romance, Love and Thunder will also involve the return of Thor's previous girlfriend, Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman. Her absence in Ragnarok was explained away with the mutual breakup excuse, but now it seems that she's going to be back in action, and she's graduating from Thor's love interest to being the mighty Thor. The idea of immortal Jane Foster wielding Mjolnir might sound a little far-fetched, but it has a precedence in the comic books. Not only that, but Thor supports Jane in becoming the mighty Thor, and decides to simply go by the name Odin's son instead. Of course, Chris Hemsworth will be back as well, an appearance that bodes well for the quality of the film. His contract was up with Endgame, but Hemsworth said he would return if he saw the right script, and Ragnarok director Taika Waititi signed on to direct and write the fourth movie. Valkyrie being in charge of New Asgard and Jane Foster being Thor are huge changes, but it definitely seems as though this project is in the right hands. There's some debate among fans regarding what is and what isn't a part of the MCU. Many people consider only the theatrical films to be canon, while others incorporate Marvel shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, it seems as though Disney is looking to make streaming their shows essential to keeping up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Back in 2017, Disney announced it was going to be creating its own streaming platform to compete with services like Netflix and Hulu. In 2018, they announced it would be called Disney+, and now, details about the service have finally been revealed, and it'll launch on November 12, 2019. About 7,000 episodes of various television series and 400 to 500 movies will be available when the service starts, and there will be much more to come. That may sound like a lot, but to put it into perspective, that's only about 16% of the selection Netflix offers. But don't count Disney out just yet. What they lack in quantity, they promise to make up for in quality, including a handful of new shows featuring beloved Marvel characters. First up is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which launches in fall 2020 on Disney+. This show casts Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan as Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, respectively. The series takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame, which means Sam will be wielding the iconic Captain America shield formerly held by Steve Rogers. A retired Steve turning the shield over to Sam has precedence in the comic books, but many fans were surprised Sam didn't rebrand with a new title. Why is he still going by Falcon and not Captain America? According to Mackie, Sam isn't Captain America and is still a Falcon. Stan pointed out the potential confusion it could cause by having Captain America as part of the show's title when it describes many MCU movies featuring Steve Rogers instead of Sam Wilson. However, Mackie confirmed he's been fit for a Captain America costume, and he's spoken about assuming the mantle of this iconic hero. So it seems likely that although he will start off as the Falcon, it's only a matter of time before Sam finds a way to truly step up into the role of Captain America. The show will also feature a Captain America villain who's made an appearance on the big screen before, who, despite being a mere mortal, managed to pull off an incredible feat in his last appearance. Daniel Bruhl plays the role of Baron Zemo, who appeared in Captain America: Civil War. He managed to cause a schism between the Avengers, and unlike many villains in the MCU, he managed to survive the end of the movie. Now he's back, and he's going to prove trouble for Sam and Bucky. In addition to appearing in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Wanda Maximoff will also be appearing in a show on Disney Plus set to start streaming in spring 2021. Seeing Scarlet Witch featured in another prominent role isn't that surprising, nor is the fact that the show will tie into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What's shocking is when this streaming series takes place. In Avengers Infinity War, Vision sacrificed himself in order to protect the Mind Stone, a noble act that was later undone by the Mad Titan Thanos. Avengers Endgame made it look as though Vision was gone for good, since he didn't return when Bruce Banner undid the decimation. Yet the show WandaVision features both Wanda and Vision, and it takes place following Avengers Endgame. There are many ways Vision could come back, because he's not an organic human being. There's also the possibility of an alternate timeline in which he's still alive, or the incorporation of time travel. During an interview, Elizabeth Olsen did say WandaVision will have an aesthetic reminiscent of the late 1950s. In addition to having Vision back following Avengers Endgame, there was another surprising casting choice for this series. Actress Teyonah Parris is joining the cast, playing an adult version of a character we've seen on the big screen before. The gifted Monica Rambeau appeared in Captain Marvel, which takes place during the 1990s. It's been confirmed that Parris will be playing the role of Monica in WandaVision, and it's safe to say she's all grown up now. In the comic books, Monica becomes a superhero going by different names, including Photon, Pulsar, and Spectrum. Another show that's going to be streaming on Disney Plus in the spring of 2021 is Loki, featuring the God of Mischief himself. We've seen Loki pull off some incredible illusions before, but his actions in Avengers Endgame left a lot of fans scratching their heads. In Avengers Infinity War, Loki lost his life at the hands of Thanos and only made an appearance in Avengers Endgame because our heroes had traveled back in time to the Battle of New York. This version of Loki managed to get his hands on the Space Stone and disappear to parts unknown. One of the biggest questions fans had after Avengers Endgame wrapped up was, where is Loki? It's a question Kevin Feige has been asked many times, and he promises the new show Loki will provide a satisfying answer. Keep in mind, this Loki isn't the one who was standing bravely by his brother's side in Thor Ragnarok. It's the same spiteful Loki from the first Thor movie, as well as the Avengers. According to actor Tom Hiddleston, there's a lot of psychological evolution that is still yet to happen. Comic book fans in particular have a lot to look forward to in summer 2021, since the famous What If comic concept is being turned into a series. Unlike the other MCU shows available to stream, this one is animated, but will include voice acting from many MCU stars including Chadwick Boseman, Karen Gillan, and Paul Rudd. Jeffrey Wright will be portraying the Watcher, a being who observes events in the MCU. He's a member of the same Watchers from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 that coincided with the cameo from the legendary Stan Lee. Unlike the other series, What If will not impact the MCU, but each episode will feature a crucial plot point that unfolds in a surprising way. For instance, what if Peggy Carter became the new Captain America? He may have just been missing from Avengers Infinity War, but Jeremy Renner is back as Clint Barton in the new Hawkeye series. In Avengers Endgame, Clint was in a new outfit, wielding a sword and generally resembling his darker superhero persona Ronin from the comic books. In the comics, there's another hero named Hawkeye who uses the name as a tribute to Clint Barton after he lost his life due to the Scarlet Witch. The new Hawkeye is a girl named Kate Bishop, who Clint comes to approve of when he returns from the dead. The Hawkeye show takes place after Avengers Endgame and features Clint passing on the title of Hawkeye over to Kate. While Jeremy Renner was on hand to promote the series at San Diego Comic-Con, there was no Kate anywhere to be seen, so fans will have to wait on the official casting. In the comic books, Kate becomes a member of the Young Avengers, an honor she shares with another character already in the MCU. Kate befriends Cassie Lang, the daughter of Scott Lang. Cassie made her debut as a little girl in the movie Ant-Man, but she's grown up a lot since the time skip in Avengers Endgame. Although Marvel has talked about the possibility of doing something with the Young Avengers in the future, nothing definitive has been announced yet. While Marvel Studios revealed enough projects and release dates to tantalize the fans at Comic-Con, there were additional projects announced that may not quite make it into Phase 4. Many fan-favorite Marvel movies are getting sequels, although exact release dates for the films haven't been shared with the public yet. Although he couldn't reveal anything specific, Kevin Feige confirmed there will be a sequel to Black Panther. The project will be written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who also worked on the first movie. This will be the first time Coogler has worked on a sequel, and he's feeling the pressure from fans to make it a good one. He says he's taking the process one step at a time and focusing on the story. Captain Marvel is another blockbuster Marvel movie that's getting a sequel at an undisclosed time. Of course, this is hardly surprising considering actress Brie Larson said she was talking about a sequel before the first movie was released. Although Carol Danvers was in Avengers Endgame, she was absent for most of the movie. She explained that the universe is a big place and lots of planets beside Earth needed protection, which also explained her lengthy absence following Captain Marvel. So maybe the sequel will show exactly what she was doing. At the end of Captain Marvel, Carol vowed to help the Skrulls find a new home and help expose the lies of the Kree. According to Kevin Feige, the time period between this movie and Avengers Endgame could be interesting to explore, and he's open to the sequel picking up not far from where the first movie left off. However, the movie taking place following Avengers Endgame is also an option and seems especially compelling considering the Skrulls made an appearance at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. It seems like fans will have to wait to find out exactly when Captain Marvel 2 will be taking place. The first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies took us into outer space and introduced us to a rambunctious cast of characters who quickly became fan favorites. Just when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 seemed to be picking up steam, Disney fired director James Gunn following some newly unearthed social media posts. For quite some time, the project was put on hiatus, with Disney still insisting it was going to happen. Meanwhile, the cast and crew threw their support behind Gunn, and other directors were reluctant to step on his toes. Finally, Disney re-hired Gunn, but there was just one small problem. Gunn hadn't just been waiting around for Disney to come crawling back. He moved on to new projects, including the sequel to DC's Suicide Squad, so now Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was going to have to wait. While the movie is definitely happening, there are no details as to when it'll be released. Right now, it seems like the earliest it drops is sometime during Phase 5. But many fans are especially curious about this movie considering what happened at the end of Avengers Endgame. The God of Thunder aligned himself with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Thor: Love and Thunder is coming out in Phase 4. This caused fans to wonder if Guardians 3 is set before or after Love and Thunder. However, Gunn confirmed on social media that Guardians 3 will take place following the events of Love and Thunder. A decade before the MCU began and Robert Downey Jr. would utter the words, "I am Iron Man" for the first time on the big screen, there was the Marvel movie Blade. The film was a massive success and soon generated a cult following. There were two subsequent films, Blade 2 and Blade Trinity, and all of the films starred actor Wesley Snipes. Compared to other superhero films, Blade is a dark movie, especially for the time period in which it was released. Its many fans longed for Blade to be introduced into the MCU, and in 2014, Snipes said he'd be open to returning to the role. Still, it seemed like a pipe dream until a Blade reboot was announced at the 2019 San Diego Comic-Con. Actor Mahershala Ali is to thank for all the excitement surrounding the new Blade movie. After winning an Oscar for his work on the film Green Book, Ali decided to leverage this win into another project and contacted Marvel Studios. According to Kevin Feige, Ali was upfront about his desire to reboot Blade and claimed the titular role for himself. He has experience portraying a Marvel character since he appeared as the villain Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes in the series Luke Cage. But now he feels it's his time to be the hero. Although Blade was announced along with the rest of Phase 4's lineup, Feige later confirmed that fans will have to wait a while to see this film. The movie doesn't have a director yet, or a release date. Right now, it's looking as though this movie will be released at some point during Phase 5. While there are so many fan-favorite characters who are going to be front and center in Phase 4 of the MCU, there are some other properties fans will be forced to wait for. Although it was a slow and tedious process, Disney's acquisition of Fox went through, meaning that they can now use heroes such as the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Deadpool. It's a huge deal, and even Kevin Feige has expressed his excitement about being able to use these characters in the MCU. He admitted to dreaming about having access to these characters throughout his 2 decades-long tenure at Marvel Studios. Fox managed to make 2 blockbusters about the popular anti-hero Deadpool, 3 if the PG-13 rated Once Upon a Deadpool counts. These movies were massively successful and left fans clamoring for more. There are also those who are curious about how the foul-mouthed Wade Wilson will cope with being under the notoriously family-friendly Disney. But compared to other Fox properties, Marvel Studios has been extra quiet about the future of the Merc with the Mouth. While fans may be worried, they're not alone in being desperate for answers about Deadpool. Josh Brolin's Thanos was finished off in Avengers Endgame, and apparently he's looking for work. He played the role of Cable in Deadpool 2 and has supposedly been asking about the future of the franchise. Deadpool director David Leitch also admits to wondering about Wade's future, but says to be patient and wait for Disney to unveil their plans for the Merc with the Mouth. While Feige has been relatively quiet about Deadpool, he did express excitement about another group of recently acquired Marvel characters. He's looking forward to bringing Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four, into the MCU. There have been quite a few Fantastic Four movies made in the past, and they've been universally panned, with the first one ever made never being released due to a severe lack of quality. But these heroes are well overdue for some good news, even if they're not getting it quite yet. Although he admits to looking forward to introducing these characters to the MCU, Feige says he's nowhere near announcing the next Fantastic Four movie. When he was asked about a timeline, he admitted they're a ways away from even casting a potential film about Marvel's first family. Feige was similarly vague when discussing the X-Men, who have had no shortage of time on the big screen. But the sheer prospect of introducing mutants into the MCU is exciting, and fans can't help but wonder how it'll impact characters like the Scarlet Witch. Because of Fox owning the movie rights to the X-Men, Wanda's MCU powers were attributed to the Mind Stone. It'll be interesting to see if media like WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness make any attempt to retcon the source of her powers. Considering how long the wait was to find out about Phase 4, fans are likely a few years away from seeing Deadpool, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men join the MCU. Part of the deal with Fox forbade Disney from working with the characters until the ink was dry on the deal. It seems like there won't be any new info on these potential projects until Marvel Studios has some solid ideas and dates to report. How high are your hype levels for the new projects in Marvel's Phase 4 and beyond? Tell us which movies you're the most excited for in the comments section below. And then click on the subscribe button for more videos from CBR. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.